guys, it's Gail with Everything Nash here with the fantabulous Ira Dean. So good to see you.
Good to see you, Gail. How's life
And
treating you?
we have a lot to talk about, which I'm really excited about. Your album, I Got Roads, out April 11th. Dude. I mean, seriously, talk about the whole project.
Well, I don't know how you want to get into this thing. I got approached by Noah Gordon, who I've known forever, and I just got done producing Aaron Lewis's second album. I did Freight at Both Ends, and I did The Hill. And Noah called me and said, "When are you going to do a record on you?" And I kind of, "Are you sure?" And we met, and he's like, "I really think it's time for you to say, you got a lot to say." And he was right. I do have a lot to say, but I didn't think anybody would give me the opportunity to say it. So I went in with my guys I always write with, Aaron Lewis, Aaron Barker, David Lee Murphy, Chris Wallen, Dave Turnbull, Jeffrey Steele, the kind of guys I always write with. And for once we started writing songs for me. And I wanted this album to every song to be as real as possible and a chapter of my life, good, bad, fun, not fun, whatever. I wanted to show all the scars and make people tap their toes at the same time. So every track is a chapter of my life. You know.
So, when did you have the idea? Okay, I'm going to do this album of me and I'm going to invite all my friends to sing on it. Talk about that process.
Well, I kind of every time I do anything now, I always approach it like this could be my last hurrah. In the music business, you don't retire from the music business. The music business retires you, and sometimes you don't know you're retired yet. And so they gave me the opportunity to do an album, and the concept of this album, I wanted to record with everybody who influenced me musically along this musical journey I had when I first moved to town as a young puppy. And anybody that I always wanted to record with that really like the Vince Gill changed the path of my life musically. I remember the first time I heard him play was off a VHS tape when I before I moved to town. It was a VHS tape of him singing on Austin City Limits. He was singing Oklahoma Borderline. He was playing guitar, and I was like, one day I'm going to record with that guy. And I called him all the time trying to get him on some of my projects. And Ronnie Dunn, the first time I heard Brooks and Dunn was the year I moved to town, and I was driving my little Chevette with no floorboard and no heat down Gallatin Road, and I heard Brand New Man, and I think that was their first single, and I was just like, oh my God, who's that singing? And so I wanted to do an album with everybody that just either A, musically changed my trajectory, or B, you know, that were my friends that I never recorded with, like Gary Allen. He was one of the first cats to cut one of my songs outside of Trick Pony. He was one of the first guys, and we became diehard friends. I don't know if it's we're both kind of have a dark side and a light side, and we tend to battle that from time to time. And I think we're both, just kindred spirits. So I knew I was going to record with him. Um, and Ted Nugent, I was, growing up, my dad only listened to um, Merle Haggard, Mac Davis, Jerry Reed, and Chet Atkins. That's all we listened to. My brother brought home the Double Live Gonzo album. My brother's a rocker, and he played Ted Nugent. And I was like, back then, you looked at the album, and I was a little kid. I was probably 5 or 6, and seeing him like shooting a bow and arrow and riding a buffalo, and then seeing all this footage of him, and he was such an entertainer and larger than life. That changed me to be wanting to be larger than life, and it changed kind of how I approach shows. So I knew I wanted to record with. There's a handful of guys. I was like, before I die, I got to record with them, and I might as well do it on this record, and just everybody who's influenced me. And so I did. Ronnie Dunn, Vince Gill, Brent Mason, Ted Nugent, Uncle Cracker, Gary Allen, David Lee Murphy, Gretchen Wilson, and the last one to come was Steve Ferroni, the drummer from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and I was a huge Tom Petty fan. Became friends with Steve Ferroni. He was in L.A. I called him up and said, "Hey, we always talked about recording together, and I don't know if I can afford you, but I'm getting ready to cut 6 more sides for my album. And he's like, how about a plane ticket and a place to stay? And he flew in and signed the card. And man, making this album, there's so many great memories and so many check off the bucket list. I mean, I was just going down the list going, done that now, done that now. So this album is it's incredible for me.
Anybody that you wanted that couldn't be on this album that might come on a future album?
Yes. There's a couple that couldn't do it just for timing wise. So if I get to make another album, it'll be volume two. We've already been writing. I've been writing with those artists and recording with those artists a little bit. And so, yeah, there's a few more. There's enough for another album. Yeah.
Stay tuned for part two. Um,
But
do you have a favorite track?
I mean, all of them, it's so hard to pick a favorite track because all of them have a memory tied to them. Not only the memory of what I wrote about, but also the recording memory. Um, I can, I think the most heartfelt one was probably "Missing How It Used to Be" that I wrote with Dave Turnbull about my mom. We wrote that right after my mom passed, and my mom was just an amazing woman. I wish everybody had the relationship I had with my mother. I wish they had that relationship with their mother. Uh, but when she passed, I canceled all rights. I didn't want to write. I didn't want to do anything musical. I wanted to grieve. And Dave Turnbull called me up and played dumb like he always does and says, "Hey, I see we got a writing appointment in the books coming up. You coming?" I said, "Man, I kind of going through some stuff. That's perfect time to write. Come on." And I love him for it. I love him. We sat down and we wrote "Missing How It Used to Be," and it's all about my mom and growing up as that kid in that time period. I think we wrote a great song and a great tribute to my mother. And lo and behold, you know, a month later, a few months later, Turnbull's mom passed. And he called me up and he said, "Missing How It Used to Be." The meaning of that song has totally turned around on him, and he's been listening to it, and it's helped him. So it's amazing how these things work. So I think "Missing How It Used to Be" is one of my top memories. What would Charlie Daniels do with Ted Nugent? That's the funniest thing ever. We've lived up to the title of "I Got Roads." I called Nugent, he heard a song I wrote and went and called everybody trying to find my phone number. He wanted to know who wrote this thing. And it was Aaron Lewis's "Am I the Only One?" And I'm in a Bass Pro Shop. I'd never met Ted. I don't know him other than looking at his album covers. My phone rings. I pick it up and I'm in a Bass Pro of all places. And he's like, "Is this Ira Dean?" I was like, "Yeah." "This is Ted Nugent." And I was like, "What?" And I was like looking around in the Bass Pro, like wanting to tell somebody I'm talking to Ted Nugent. And he's like, "You wrote one of the top 3 songs I wish I would have wrote, and we need to write." And we became friends. We started throwing ideas back and forth over the phone. And when I wrote "What Would Charlie Daniels Do" with Jeffrey Steele, I put his name in the second verse. I'm one of them don't give a damn Ted Nugent fans. And I sent it to Ted, and Ted called me up right away and goes, "I want to play on that. I want to play. I will give you the best solo of your life." And it was hilarious. And I was like, "Okay." So when I called him to do it, he's like, "It's hunting season. I can't do it till March." I said, "Ted, I got to get this thing done." "Well, I'm sorry, man. I don't know what to do." And so I said, "Well, when I hunt, I get up in the tree stand before sunup. And then about 10 o'clock, I climb down, go have lunch, take a nap. And then I'm back in the trees about 2 o'clock till sundown." And he goes, "Yeah, same here." And I was like, "So you got a 4 hour period that you're not going to be, you know?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "What's your address in Waco, Texas?" And he gave it to me. I said, "I'll see you tomorrow." And he's like, and he thought I was joking. And I called the producer, Nora Gordon, and I said, "Hey, Noah, pack a Pro Tools rig. I'm going to pick you up and we're going to drive to Waco right now."
You didn't fly, you drove.
We drove 13 hours. We had too much gear to fly. So I drove us all the way to Waco. We got there, I think it was like 5:30 in the morning. We rented a hotel room, took a nap till 9, drove to Ted Nugent's house, and he was in full camo, just came out of the trees. And he's like, "You guys weren't kidding, were you?" I was like, "No, let's record." And so we set up everything. He recorded. Played two great guitar. He didn't. He could have done it once and been done. Plays his butt off in full camo. We hung out. Shemaine, his wife, cooked us lunch and hugged their necks by. Jumped in a car and I drove home. It was 26 hours round trip
And
with
you
a
got a hotel room for 3 hours?
yeah. Yeah, I was seeing the road was turning purple by the time I got home, but I was running on such adrenaline, and after hanging with Ted, and like I said, he changed my life musically to just be a wild man, and I was a wild man, and but Ted played his butt off on that record.
Well, it's phenomenal. Do you have I don't know how to say this. Do you have a goal or with this album, I would like to do what?
With this album, I'd like to introduce myself to everybody because everybody knows me as the songwriter or from Trick Pony, the bass player, and yeah, I wrote a lot of songs for Trick Pony. I've written a lot of songs for everybody else, but this is the first time I've written songs for me for my project, and I want to somebody to put my album on and let it go from start to finish like a train ride and not jump off. And I think once they do that, they'll understand who I am and what I got to say. And this is basically just an introduction to the world, saying you've known me, but you haven't known me. This is me.
Does it come from, I don't mean this to be a polarizing, but was there any frustration at earlier parts in your career that you weren't doing what you wanted to do?
Always,
Okay.
always. I mean, I think that's way with any band. I mean, you with Trick Pony, you're in a three-way marriage, you
Mm.
know, and there was times I wanted to. There were songs I wanted us to cut that didn't get cut, that somebody else would cut and it'd be go number one for them, and that was frustrating to me. You know, yeah, maybe I don't play well with others. I don't know, but that is frustrating. I never had to bend and please other people's musical tastes, and I think it helped me mature a lot because I never had to do that. And we Trick Pony made some great music, but there was always a part of me that wanted to say more and wanted to do more. And so by the time we had our run, I didn't know if I was ever going to get an opportunity to actually do a record on my own. And I want Noah Gordon called up, and he's known me for 25 years. And he said, "It's time for you to say something about you." And yeah, I remember calling my friends. I remember talking to Ronnie Dunn about it, and I was like, this guy wants me to do an album, and he's like, "You should do it." And I was like, "Really?" And I talked to Phil O'Donnell, another songwriter buddy of mine. You should do it, man. What's taking you so long? And so part of me was afraid to jump in, but other part, I had some great friends going, "Dude, it's your time. Do it, do it." And so it came out great. This is the first thing I've been part of that I put the album in, and for the first time in my life, I don't hit fast forward because every track resonates with me. It's Neil Capolino mixed it. It's not all in your face. It's not a modern rock and roll mix that I've made a lot of demos that way, but I wanted something more organic, something more real. There's not a loop on this thing. Every instrument's actually played. We made a record like old school cats make records. We went in a room and we hashed it out, and the arrangement needs to go like this, and let's do it. And sonically, it's great. Neil Capolino, he's a Grammy award winning engineer. He's most known for Alison Krauss's stuff. So it was a very organic sounding mix that's not all up in your face. The album came out great.
It
I mean,
did. I listened to it all the way through, and I'll be honest, I very rarely do that. I usually do like first chorus, next, first chorus,
yeah.
but I didn't with yours. So kudos
Thank
to you.
you.
I want to switch gears real quick before I let you go because you are also touring with Brooks and Dunn.
Yeah. What about that?
What about that?
Eh,
That says a lot about your musicianship because they could pick anybody that they wanted.
Well, I used to be a session guy. In this business, there's artists and there's writers and there's session musicians and there's live musicians. With me, at a young age of watching Paul McCartney and Wings on TV, I realized you could do all that. And so I play multiple instruments. I was a session guy. I'm a live guy. I'm a songwriter. I'm a producer. I entertain. I try to spin a lot of plates. I just love making music. I love it. And so Ronnie called me a week before rehearsal started, and he's like, "I'll never forget." He goes, "I I said, what are you up to? And he goes, I might be making your day or breaking your day. And I was like, what's going on? He goes, I know our song's sitting at 23 in the chart, and you're probably booked up on tour already. And I was like, yeah. And he said, how booked up are you? And it just so happened that I was in transition trying to find a new agent this year. And so all my stuff's on the back end of the year. I start touring, in the fall and winter. So I've got the summer off. I said, actually, it's pretty bare, to be honest with you. I'll probably be just sitting here writing. He goes, okay, that answers my question. And I was like, what? And he goes, you're going to come out and write with us anyway. Why don't you just? I need a monster bass player that sings, and I want you to come out and play. And I was like, I don't know if I'm a monster bass player, but I'll send me the dates. And he goes, there's only 33 shows, which is easy breezy, but it's all arenas and stadiums. And so I said, send me the dates. And I wanted to make sure that none of my dates I had conflicted because I hated committing to it and then going, oh, I can't do this date and I can't do this one. And they deserve somebody's full commitment because the band and Kix and Ronnie are just great people. And I looked at the dates and there was just one show I couldn't make, just one. And so I called Ronnie and said, there's this one show I can't do, but I can do the rest. I can do the whole tour.
And
And
he said,
he said, cool, rehearsals start next week. That's it.
okay, I have to let you go, but I can't let this go. So take me back to the young man who was driving his was it Chevelle without
No,
floorboard?
a Chevette, a little
Chevette, sorry.
Chevette with no floorboard.
Now playing with Brooks and Dunn.
Yeah, it's crazy. And and Trick Pony was on that Brooks and Dunn tour in 2003. We were the opening act. And I would sit there on the side of the stage in '03 and watch that band play and watch Kix and Ronnie. Because at the end of the day, I'm still a huge country music fan, and I think, you know, in my lifetime, I came to town, after the Merle Haggard and Keith Whitley passed, and I came to town then. Since I come to town, Ronnie Dunn is the best country singer that I've ever heard in my life, ever. And so I'm a huge fan. And now I get to sit back there and watch Kix and Ronnie, and they have the most magical chemistry ever. And there's a reason after watching them all these shows, there's a reason why they're still on top of their game. They're just both of them are just incredible entertainers, incredible musicians, incredible singers, writers. They're really good. But I get to sit back, stand on my little riser, and listen to Ronnie Dunn sing "I Believe" every night, which is one of my favorite songs. And I've heard the song 1,000 times, but I get goosebumps every time I hear it. And he sings flawlessly, and Kix is a hell of a singer too. But they haven't let it go to their heads, and they're just good people, and they're great friends, and they're very complimentary of me. And so, yeah, I'm there. I'm having a good, the 12-year-old me is up there going, who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it, man?
Well, that's awesome. I'm really happy for you, and I'm really glad we got to connect again because you're fabulous.
Oh, well, you're fabulous too.
Thanks. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you. You have a great day.
You too.